Hey, and welcome to Let's Get Saved with the Martins. I'm Daniel, this is Jennifer, and this week we'll be talking about why liberal Christians should go to church.
So, I have a lot of friends, a lot of Christian friends, and a lot of them are liberal Christians, and so many of them don't go to church. And I have no idea why. I get it. I was burned by the church badly. My husband lost his job at a church and a Christian school because he drank a beer. I'm not shitting you.
Yes, but only because someone posted it on Twitter. But a church shouldn't be able to just kick you out because you're liberal or different. It does happen all the time. I've read stories of churches who've essentially kicked someone out for being gay or transgender, having a mental disorder. There's all sorts of reasons. Churches should welcome everyone.
And even churches who don't explicitly kick people out can be just as bad, because until I started attending a United Church of Christ church last year, every single church I've ever attended refused to let gay people be on the church council or let women serve in a pastoral role. And as a feminist, that really pisses me off.
So, you might wonder, especially if you're a liberal or a progressive Christian, why should I go to church at all? Well, I'm actually glad you asked. Churches with more conservative members are filled to the brim. They get lots of money, and because of that, they're louder. Their voices get heard more. They're more successful, and they tend to represent what Christianity and church looks like in America.
But it doesn't have to be that way. Despite the fact that more and more Christians identify as progressive, not all of those Christians go to church. And because of that, liberal churches tend to fail financially. These are the churches who allow women to preach. These are the churches who happily welcome LGBT people onto their councils. And those churches are failing. And conservatives say it's because they're not following God's word. But that's bullshit.
For a lot of people, the problem there could be awareness. You might not be aware that progressive or liberal churches exist. Maybe you've never been exposed to the existence of even entire denominations that are liberal, and they're out there. There are a lot of independent churches also who are warm and accepting. Even beyond that, there's the Episcopalian Church, Disciples of Christ, some Presbyterians, Evangelical Lutherans, some Methodist congregations, and, well, our personal favorite, United Church of Christ.
The United Church of Christ changed my life. Seriously, I go to church every single weekend. I used to hate going to church. We get to learn about other faiths without being told they're a threat. We learn about Jesus. We're loved. They support the poor in our community extensively. And the United Church of Christ was the first congregation to have a female pastor, to have a gay pastor, to have a black pastor, and to have a transgender pastor. We sing songs at church and we have a good time. And best of all, nobody gets fired for drinking beer.
Liberal Christians shouldn't just go to church to support it. The church actually supports you too. The message of love and forgiveness, it's a hard lesson to learn, no matter how many times you've heard it. It's really easy to say we love people and we forgive people, but do we really?
And in any church, even a progressive one, you'll meet people who are different from you. Some of the members of my church are libertarians or conservative, and because I remember how isolating it was to be the only liberal in a very conservative church, I always try to go out of my way to talk to these people who think and feel differently. We are all valid in the eyes of God.
At the end of the day, church is important. It's the bride of Christ. It teaches you, it enriches you, it makes you a better person. And at this time, where we're at right now, you can have an online community of people who agree with you and read progressive theology books. But is that going to challenge you? Is that what's going to take you out of your comfort zone?
Um, and as a parent, it's also really important for me to raise my children in the church. And that might be one positive tenet of conservative Christianity that was ingrained in me. But I didn't find out until I was in my 20s that there was even a such thing as progressive Christianity, much less that entire denominations and churches existed supporting it. For almost my entire life, I never met a gay Christian. I didn't know women could be pastors. I had only ever been exposed to literalist theology at church. But I'm lucky because my family was always very argumentative. Theological debates were a common dinner conversation, and you could disagree with someone and still love them. And it's still like that today in my family. But even my conservative parents, they've always kind of challenged the status quo. They were the black sheep of their families. See, Mom and Dad, this is how you end up with a liberal tattooed daughter with purple hair.
So yeah, raising children in a church where they see gay couples and female pastors and learn about other religions from a non-threatening perspective, it's going to be huge for their personal development.
Hopefully.
So now we're going to move on to kind of the discussion part of our segment. Let's talk. Jennifer, why did you want to attend a United Church of Christ church?
Literally 4 days after you got fired from the Assemblies of Church God that will not be named, I was thrilled to be able to go to United Church of Christ Church for the first time. I'd researched it for about a year, and their theology was just so impressive to me. It was everything in line with what I believed personally. And more importantly, they accepted the divinity of Jesus Christ, unlike Unitarian churches. No offense, Unitarians. You're good people. Daniel, I know you aren't as theologically liberal as I am. But when did you start questioning some of the things you'd been taught as a child or at church?
Well, for me, it's kind of been a long journey. I've always liked to think about theology. I've always liked to talk theology. But there's kind of a process and a kind of a step that kind of happened to me when I began to not just question the things with the church, but eventually you get to a point, usually in your 20s, usually in college, where you're like, hey, wait, I've just heard all of this stuff. I don't think that what I'm learning is lining up quite with what I used to know about God, about theology, or whatever. I've known a lot of people my age that have used that time and just completely taken a break from the church and just completely spill it off. That was never me. But that being said, there's still things that I've found within the church. Some of it I actually got there through a band that I used to, or still do, listen to. It was called Five Iron Frenzy. And what started me kind of down this path and thinking more progressively, they actually had a song called Fahrenheit, and it was like a tribute to Freddie Mercury. And the lyrics talk about, it was written by the lead singer Reese Roper, and he talked about this change they had in his stance and his thinking about gays and how they were treated in the church. And initially he was really harsh towards them, and as the song goes, he talks about how that was a mistake, and looking back behind it, he has regrets, and he's kind of ashamed of the way he used to treat them. And even that thought process started me down that path, thinking about theology, especially thinking about regards to homosexuality and how we treat it and how we look at it as Christians. I would also have to say my mom was actually a big influence in that. She had a friend in college, and he was gay, and he died of AIDS. And I think seeing that kind of suffering and hurting really affected her. And she's told me that story before. And this idea that Christians should be more welcoming to the groups of people, especially ones that are hurting. And at the time, and to a great majority still today, the gay or the LGBTQT, I'm sorry, I'm not good with the letters, but that community, I'll work on it, I promise. But that community needs support. They need more love, and they need to see it from a Christian perspective. It's not necessarily that we take the stance nowadays of love the sinner, hate the sin, because that's, at one point I thought, oh, that's what you're supposed to do, but now that doesn't even mean the same thing anymore, because when someone says that, it only means one thing, and even that's just ridiculous, and it's still used to exclude people.
Right.
So that's a little bit of how my theology has progressed. And even going so far nowadays to say that I fully support and I believe that there is such a thing as a gay Christian. I believe certainly there's such a thing as a transgender Christian, and that you can be at peace with that, and that your lifestyle even reflects the Bible, and that there's not a conflict. All right, I've rambled long enough. I'm gonna pass it to you.
Okay, well, that's pretty cool. Are you glad you attend a liberal church now? Like, is there anything you miss about the conservative churches? I'll tell you what I miss. I miss the spirit-filled music. And I'm not to say that they don't have that in some liberal denominations. Maybe they do. They not in my church, it's more like traditional liturgical music. I also miss some of the Pentecostal things and like speaking in tongues. I feel like that stuff creeps people out so much. I guess because I was raised with it. It always made me feel warm and cozy inside to see it. That might be weird. So, is there anything you miss?
It's kind of hard to say. Just at this point, we're starting to get more involved in the church, and I think that was the kind of connection I was missing initially. But yeah, I mean, I could agree a little bit with the music that we're not getting into the church music debate, but I would prefer something slightly more upbeat and contemporary. But that's not a problem, and
No.
it's a minor thing compared to all the upside and all the awesome things we get to experience and see acted out on a daily basis. That's small matters.
And it's sort of cool the way, like, our church has, like, certain hymns they sing during the liturgical calendar. And that's pretty cool, too. I've started liking that more.
Oh, yeah. Okay, guys, this about wraps things up. In short, if you're liberal, go find a progressive church. They're out there. They're awesome. And most importantly, they need your help. They need your support so the progressives can have more of a voice.
Yes. And in fact, if you want to find an open and affirming church, you can go to www.gaychurch.org and please go. Just try it. One church service at a progressive church. Give progressive churches a chance. Come on, y'all. And in fact, if you live in Richmond, you can come to my church, St. John's United Church of Christ, 503 Stewart Circle. We're there every Sunday, so come stalk us.
but not really stalk us. Until next time, this has been Let's Get Saved with Daniel and Jennifer Martin.